Did you hear about the sinkhole at the White House?
Yeah, that's a poignant story.
Yeah, what did you hear about that?
Oh, suddenly there appeared a sinkhole on the grounds of White House, and then comedians started to make fun of it.
Oh,
yeah, like Stephen Colbert and others. So that was.
Yeah, my Facebook and Twitter feed have both been just blowing up with people laughing about this and making fun of it. And I mean, it's a sinkhole in DC. It's not super deep. Actually, I think there might be two at this point, but it's not very deep. It's maybe like a foot long too. And the chances of it being because of pipes or something with the grounds is probably pretty high, but that has not stopped people from coming up with their own interpretations of why there's a sinkhole in the White House or at the White House. And the reaction has me thinking about just how much people need to laugh these days. I feel like sort of the energy has been sucked out of the country for the past almost 2 years now. And folks just need to laugh sometimes.
Yeah, and I think that comedians are definitely helping us out with that. I'm enjoying it. It's my primary source of news, I must say, going to them and having them interpret the news. Of course, I know that they are exaggerating and so on, but that's part of the comedy. That's part of those jokes. But at the same time, that keeps us sane, I would think. That humor is keeping us sane, and that's very important. And it can be a tool of resistance as well.
Yeah. Did you see the White House Correspondents' Dinner with Michelle Wolf?
Oh, absolutely. And
talk about resistance.
Yeah. And she was attacked.
Yeah.
For going too far and it not being funny. It's always a matter of what is your situation. You are watching it, and to me it was quite good. People don't often recognize that it is an integral part of our human existence and of our faith.
Yes. I feel like people love to take things super seriously, and that's not to say that you shouldn't be taking certain things seriously, but sometimes you get to laugh at things. You get to laugh at the craziness that's happening in our country. You can even laugh at the Bible. The Bible is full of stuff that is absolutely hilarious.
Yeah. The sarcasm, ridicule, parody through the Hebrew Bible as well as New Testament and Gospels. I think that Jesus definitely had a very, very good ear and brain for expressing certain things in a very poignant way. I think that his parables, especially those which are open-ended, are almost like humorous anecdotes.
Do you have one that comes to mind in particular?
It'll be more aphorism, for instance, that aphorism about the rich people going to kingdom of heaven in the same way as camel passing through the eye of needle. I think this is prime example of a beautiful non sequitur expression and comical.
Yeah.
And well remembered by everyone ever since.
So I work with youth. I work with children. Yeah. So one of my favorite passages, because of that, is the one where Samuel gets called, and he hears God calling him in the night, but he doesn't realize it's God. I think Eli, so he keeps running back and forth.
Yeah.
And I like that story. I think it's really interesting. It's really fun to act out with children. But I had a friend a few years back point out that if you read it in Hebrew, it's basically just slapstick. Like this running back and forth and like the guy can't hear, so he's screaming, "Huh? What? No, that's not me." Like
Yeah,
the whole thing plays off like an old school comedy sketch,
and
we don't recognize it for that.
And that's still usable for our youth group or within the church.
I think it makes it better.
And then above it all, you have all this racy, really problematic sarcasms, ridicule, parody stories, which almost cannot be used in the worship, cannot be used with the youth. It's difficult even to sometimes to talk about it in the Bible class. Just go and research, for instance, David's wedding gift. That's a primary example of that, and so on and so on. Tamar and Judah. For instance, story that has many comical dimensions to it and interesting twists. And it's always problematic to try to explain jokes because as soon as you start explaining it, it's not funny any longer. But really, I would encourage everyone to read biblical stories with an open mind. Exactly for these dimensions of comedy and it is also an inspiration for us to look at ourselves with a grain of salt and with some humor, because when I look at my business or other things from some distance, I recognize how funny it can be.
Yeah, I think it's so easy to get overwhelmed, and it's so easy to take yourself too seriously. Yeah. I think it's so easy to
take your religion too
seriously, to take the world around you as nothing but doom and gloom. And I think it's really important to remember that it's okay to laugh and it's okay to smile, and some of the ways that we connect to each other best are through humor. And being able to laugh at something doesn't necessarily mean that you're making fun of it or that it gets devalued. Sometimes it's just what you need to live and to connect and to be stronger.
And sometimes it deserves to be ridiculed.
Yeah.
It deserves to be deconstructed and to be taken down. And humor for that purpose is a very efficient tool. If you see someone trying to trump up his or her importance to grasp more power that belongs to that person and so on. I know it from my experience growing up under communism. We were powerless, but we had humor.
Yeah.
And interestingly, they went even after those who were passing on jokes, because that became, to some degree, an major offense against the regime. But we were doing it anyhow.
Yeah.
And it was like that acid nailing or diluting, destroying that foundation of that regime. And that's another important function of humor, because it's a tool of liberation.
Yeah, and you were pointing out a little bit earlier that similar things are happening now. A lot of the ills of the world come out in comedy. They come out in these infotainment late night talk shows where the person is being funny, but it's a scathing critique and it's news.
Yes.
Like, I learn way more watching John Oliver than I do necessarily reading through articles. And it's funny and it's researched and it's speaking up for justice and for liberation. And
So I think that humor is definitely important for all of us, and in the church as well. And there is a theological value in it as well. And we encourage everyone to really keep your mind open to these matters and continue laughing.
Yeah, we make time for love, we make time for anger, let's make time to laugh.
Yeah.